Um, I'm very deep. There's a lot of things that I discovered on my own. You want to know something? One time I was sitting, I think I had read the entire Bible for like the second time, or maybe the third time. I read it a bunch of times. And I also read like the Quran and I read other books too. But I was always stuck at the one point where it would always go, but if you have understanding, reckon the number of the beast. And I've told this story before. Now, when you go to jail or you're in the can or whatever like that, they might have a board game or something like that, checkers. Well, they had the game of life, and people played this game serious. You know what I'm saying? You had to hurry up, get married, get some kids, go on, spin the fucking dial, do all these things. And then at the end of the game, it was the day of reckoning. And you would have to, like, everybody would add up all their money, how many kids you had. If you got a kid, you got so much money, and then you would fucking figure out your dollar amount, and then whoever had the most dollar won the game of life. And I was like, wow, that's really like what the game of life is about, because people are in this big chase for everything. So it was like, so I was reading the Bible, and the Bible goes, let him who has understanding or whatever, something, reckon the number of the beast, and it's a human number. And I was thinking about the song too, even, it's like, uh, uh, yeah, um, I think Iron Maiden or whatever, uh, number of the beast. So I was sitting there and I was like, I was drawing these things on a piece of paper, and I was doing this calculation, and I was drawing like where the earth was and the sun, and I was like progressing, drawing in a straight line, and I was trying to mathematically figure out 180 degrees, because 90 degrees is obviously a turn, 180 degrees is a straight line. And I was thinking, how can it be 180 degrees? And what happens if another line crosses? And then how do you calculate those degrees? And then how does it, where does it start? And is there really a continuous line? And then I came up with the solution in my mind that if you had reached like the speed of light and traveled as fast as light could travel, that you would reach like a boundary at some point that you would break, and then you would end up back at your starting point. So I was figuring this out, and then all of a sudden it was like, reckon the number of the beast. So I sat there on a piece of paper and I said, all right, I'm going to put 6, and I wrote 666, and then I wrote underneath it again. And so I cubed it so that it was going down. It was 666, 666, across like a tic tac toe. You understand? So I was like, wait a minute, day of reckoning, you're supposed to add it up. And so I started to add up the numbers, and it added up to 1998. I was like, holy fuck, I figured it out. So I was sitting there. This is a nut moment, okay? So I was sitting there, right? This is like the early 90s, all right? I've reckoned the number of the beast, and it's added up to 1998. So it's like, all right, so this dude's born in 1998. Uh, Not 1988, 1998. If you add 666 plus 666 plus 666, it equals 1998. And then if you add up those numbers, 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 9 is 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 9 is 19, plus 8 is 27. Then if you add 2 and 7, then it adds back up to 9. You understand? And then if you break down 9 as divisible by 3, which breaks it down to 3, which brings you into like the Trinity, and then you start thinking about more angles and fractions. And then your mind is just confunctioned at that point, because now you're like, wait a minute now, everything's a circle. And then you're like, well, how can that be? And then you start like, okay, I'm going to draw around my body then. Okay, I'm going, oh, there's 90 degrees, there's 90 and negative 90, we're at 0 degrees. And then I'm, okay, there's 100 and there's 90 degrees. And then by the time I add and subtract all these degrees and go around my body, it adds up to 360 at the end, after you've subtracted. So what I found is that when you start going around any object and you start subtracting and adding all the degrees, it always comes out to 360 degrees. Yeah. it's not the false trinity. It's a mathematical thing. You realize that that 6.666 carried on forever is the perfect 2/3. It's 1/3. At the end of all that stuff is 9.999999999 on continuous. Yeah.